Poverty is not the problem of the poor, it's a problem of everyone. First of all, because we share a human condition. It affects the lives of people who live in poverty in any number of ways. They have less access to health and to education. So I think it's impossible to be a human without accepting the values of humanism and solidarity, which was that. It's also, of course, a problem for societies, because a society that have a lot of poor people basically loses so much of its potential and of its richness, because many of these poor people don't become the scientist or the engineer or the politician that they could have become, because poverty has stopped them in their track.
How does COVID-19 pandemic and climate change impact poverty?
So COVID-19 has been a very big short-term shock for poor countries. Not so much because they suffered more from health impacts. In fact, the African continent has been remarkably spared from the point of view of health consequences itself. Some of the poorest countries in the world have not had too many deaths, but locked down their economies and exactly like the rich countries. And unlike the rich countries or even the middle-income countries like Brazil, the poorest country did not have the resources to protect their citizens. So when the rich countries spend about a quarter of their GDP simply to support their citizens during lockdown, the poorest countries in the world, in Africa or like that, spend about 2% of their GDP on it. So the people were completely unprotected for the economic shock that COVID was, and therefore the recovery was also much slower. Climate change, on the other hand, is a problem that is already affecting poor countries today and will affect them even more in the future, because they don't have the air conditioning, they have to continue working, they don't have immediately access to healthcare facilities if something goes wrong. And so they are more likely to be dying. Even though poor people contributed almost nothing to climate change, because their emissions are so low, they are the most important victims.
How do the fight against inequality and the fight against climate change relate to each other?
One is poor people contribute nothing to climate change. One is they are the most directly affected. And one is they have the least means to protect themselves. So unless we directly address the ability of the poorest people in the world to protect themselves, inequality is only going to increase. And with that, the inequity of climate change is only going to become worse and worse.
And you have made some propositions regarding how to protect and adapt or mitigate the effects of climate change on poor people. Could you explain us briefly?
The idea is to start from this observation that poor countries contribute nothing to climate change or very little. They experience most of the damages. You're taking a country like Niger, for example. And if you put a price on human life, which is of course very difficult to do, but you valued that, and you valued in addition the agricultural loss and the economic loss, and looked at the extent of the damage to a country like Niger is something like $35,000 per person and per year. That is what the world collectively is imposing on Niger. If you take the world as a whole and it's considered just mortality, by 2100 there will be 6 million extra deaths due to temperature, and they will be almost only in countries that are poor. The choice that we're making and the emissions that are coming from Europe and the US cause a damage of $500 million every year. So we really need to find a way to compensate people for at least part of these damages.
Research has shown that while raising taxes is a very unpopular measure, taxing the ultra-rich to finance policy to the poorest is viewed more favorably.
Yep.
Then why is it so difficult to implement such taxation policies to the ultra-rich?
So yes, absolutely. So that's research by French researchers called Adrien Fabre, who was collected a number of surveys collecting people's opinion in Europe and in the US on various climate change solutions. And he finds, for example, that carbon tax is very unpopular. But on the other hand, the idea of taxing the ultra-rich, even to redistribute the money elsewhere, that's much more popular. Why is it very difficult to implement? Maybe because rich people have a lot of political power, and they are not very keen about the idea. So we need to find money, raise money, and one of the things I'm proposing in collaboration or in keeping with the Brazilian proposal at the G20 presidency is a taxation of the ultra-wealthy. And then if we have the money, we need to figure out how to give it to people. And there I'm proposing to basically find a way to send it directly to people what they want to do.